All right, let's talk about something we've all encountered. The very special, and let's be honest, kind of baffling language of business advisory services. It is a world just packed with buzzwords and jargon that can make anyone's head spin. So today, we're going to decode it. You know that feeling, right? You're in a meeting, someone's presenting, and you hear a phrase that sounds incredibly important, but you have absolutely no idea what it actually means. If that's you, trust me, you are not alone. And here's the little secret. That confusion? Sometimes that's the whole point. This language isn't always about being clear. It's often a strategic tool used to manage what people expect, to control a conversation, and, as we're about to see, to shape the final outcome. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to crack the corporate code. Think of this as your official decoder ring. We'll look at some of the most common terms, what they're supposed to mean, and then pull back the curtain on what's really being said. Okay, first up is a category of phrases that I like to call the great work dodge. These are the go-to terms you hear when someone wants to politely say no, delay a project, or just, pass the buck, all without sounding unhelpful. Let's start with bandwidth. Someone says, I just don't have the bandwidth for that right now. It sounds like they're just super busy, a simple scheduling issue. But more often than not, it's a polite, professional-sounding, but very firm way of saying, yeah, no, I am not doing that. Oh, and this one's a classic. Let's circle back on that. It sounds so responsible, doesn't it? Like you're bookmarking an important topic for later. But in reality, it's the ultimate stalling tactic. It's a way to kick a difficult conversation down the road and just hope it gets lost along the way. Now, this one sounds so wise. We don't want to boil the ocean. It's pitched as this practical warning to keep things focused. But it's also a fantastic way to strategically shrink a project, to cut out all the messy, complicated parts until you're left with something much, much easier to handle. It's actually kind of brilliant. By calling something boiling the ocean, you make it sound utterly impossible. You're not refusing work, you're just being realistic and strategic. It's a masterful way to sidestep a massive amount of accountability. And then there's getting buy-in. The idea is that you're building a real consensus. But really think about it. It's often more of a preemptive strike. You get everyone to nod their heads early on so that when the final plan is unveiled, there's no room left for any real debate or pushback. All right, let's shift gears to our next section, which I call the illusion of analysis. This is all about the art of making guesswork sound like hard science, creating this comforting but totally false sense of data-driven certainty. I mean, who doesn't love the sound of a deep dive? It feels so thorough, so meticulous. But while it's pitched as leaving no stone unturned, it can also be a fantastic way to just delay things. Need to postpone a tough decision? Or maybe just extend those billable hours a little longer? Announce a deep dive. That's the question, isn't it? Are we actually down here discovering profound, game-changing insights? Or are we just swimming around, burning through time and money to avoid making a tough call that's waiting for us back on dry land? And when there's no time or budget for a deep dive, well, you've got its exact opposite. And that brings us right here to the humble napkin, the official birthplace of our next term. Back of the envelope math. It's sold as being agile, quick, and decisive. But let's call it what it often is. Guesswork wearing a lab coat. It gives a rough estimate, the authority of real analysis, without any of the hard work of, actually doing the research. Now, a bottoms-up analysis sounds incredibly rigorous. You're building your case from the ground up, piece by piece, with fundamental data. The only problem? Oftentimes the conclusion is already decided. This whole elaborate process is just about creating a data trail that leads exactly where you wanted to go in the first place. So where do you get the data for your predetermined conclusion? Well, that's where benchmarking comes in handy. It's supposed to be a strict comparison against the best in the business, but it can easily turn into an exercise in cherry-picking the specific companies and data points that just so happen to prove your point. So, after all the work dodging and this so-called analysis, it's time to actually present something. And that brings us to our final act, the language used to package it all up, usually by wrapping it in a nice, thick cloak of ambiguity. An action plan. It sounds fantastic. It's about action. But if you look a little closer, you might find that the clear, structured steps are actually a pretty vague to-do list. And conveniently, each item on the list seems to require more advisory work. Funny how that happens. And what is that action plan so often filled with? best practices. It's a term that promises proven, battle-tested solutions. But what it often delivers is generic, one-size-fits-all advice that isn't really the best practice for your unique situation. It's safe, but it's rarely a game changer. And all of this gets bundled together into the final deliverable. The client is hoping for clear, actionable insights. What they might get is a really nice-looking PowerPoint deck stuffed with all the jargon we've just talked about. It's a tangible product, sure, but its actual value can be as fuzzy as the language inside it. So once you peel back all these layers, you start to see it, don't you? It's a pattern, it's a code, and now you know how to read it. See, when you look at the big picture, these phrases aren't just random. They serve very real purposes. They help people avoid accountability, they create a sense of artificial complexity that can justify higher fees and longer projects, and they let you sound super strategic without ever having to make a firm, risky commitment. So the next time you're in a meeting and you hear someone mention their bandwidth or propose a deep dive, you'll hear it differently. You'll know what to listen for. The real question is, now that you can read between the lines, what are you going to do about it? Thanks for tuning in.